right, so just like all of you, I'm a college student, and I don't get up on stage very often, but I was up on another stage a couple of months ago, and it's funny because I am wearing a lot more clothing today than I was then. Let me tell you why. This photo was taken at a bodybuilding competition a couple months ago, and I had never done anything like this before. But I won my division, I placed first, and I qualified for nationals. And the reason why I won was because I worked out. But so had everyone else. Everyone else was manipulating their carbs and counting their calories. We were all going about this in a very specific, scientific way. But I didn't care what my body looked like. I was thinking about the journey and the experience. I had a routine, but it wasn't just about the physical. I wanted to have fun with it and bring my personality into it, and I did, but this was not my first attempt at a competition like this. Strength and physical health are great goals for all of us. They were my goals in training for this bodybuilding competition, but I found that when one focuses only on the physical, we tend to neglect the other passions and qualities in life that make us happy. And when we're not happy, it's pretty difficult to be truly successful at anything. So, for example, during my bodybuilding experience at the gym I trained at, I would walk into the locker room, to the women's locker room, and I would see girls staring at themselves in the mirror head on, and then they'd walk over to the scale to weigh themselves. And I would see disgust in their eyes and tears dripping down their face when they looked down at the number on the scale and realized that they weren't dropping enough body fat. And I would receive text messages from these girls telling me that they were completely destroyed and their training was ruined and everything was ruined because they had woken up one morning and eaten a blueberry muffin. And at the same gym, I would watch men take selfies of their biceps, and before even finishing their workout, before even finishing their workout, they would open Instagram on their phones, pick a filter, and hashtag Flex Friday. And I used to do the same things. And it didn't make me happy. In many ways, it made me sick. I don't know if the others whom I observed doing these things were happy, but I suspect they were not. Why not? We obsess over beautiful people. Many of us spend a lot of time and a lot of money in order to look a certain way. In 2014, our weight loss industry valued at $64 billion. So when we finally do achieve that body we want, or that look we want, why are we not completely ecstatic and fulfilled? Our generation is disassociated from personal relationships, from self-development, due to technology and the media. Think about how many of us would rather have a conversation with someone on Facebook than we would in real life. And we are never alone because our phones are always with us. I'm sure you're thinking back to the last time when you were on your phone. Maybe it was 10 minutes ago, maybe it was in the Starbucks line, maybe it was when you were awkwardly waiting for your friend in the library. Maybe it's right now. Is there anyone on their cell phone right now? We have everything at our fingertips, from online shopping in Thailand to the ability to Google the word fitness and look at anybody's body at any given moment. Our generation is criticized for our lack of connections, our involvement in social media, our obsession with the internet. We're told that we have no moral compass. We have no respect for our elders. We are lazy. But interestingly, a Roman philosopher named Cicero pointed out the same observations about the youth of Rome around 100 BC. So all of this criticism is pretty standard throughout history from one generation to the next. But our generation has become the most body-obsessed generation in history due to the internet and media. And this focus on how we look at the expense of how we feel is not a good trade-off. But no matter what we're told, we can still be otherwise. Even though we are young, we have the power to do things that make us feel whole. In today's society, we're stereotyped. So maybe you've been told that you're the athlete, you're the volunteer, you're the musician. Maybe you associate with just one thing, and you have poured all of your energy into just one aspect of yourself. Our generation is told so many things about what we need to do, what we need to be, what we need to look like. We develop anxieties, and we're overwhelmed because there are so many things that we're told we need to be. We're even told that we need to look a certain way in order to be liked and accepted. So when I was a freshman in college, I just moved from my home state of Colorado to South Carolina to go to college. And I was really into lifting heavy weights and trying this new thing called CrossFit. So I remember I was training at this little cracker box of a gym in this alley behind my university. And I was this young freshman. I thought I was really tough. So people always joke that when you go off to college, things get rough, right? You finally have to learn how to cook on your own. You have to learn how to do your own laundry. Let's be real, cooking really looks like a packet of ramen noodles. Doing your own laundry really looks like wearing the same outfit every single day. But for me, things did get rough because I became really sick. I couldn't eat. I couldn't breathe. Sometimes I couldn't even get up out of bed. And as I was getting worse and worse, I kept showing up at my gym to lift weights. My ego wasn't going to be stopped by something like bronchitis. Stopping was not an option until the day that I had to physically drop my weights and leave the gym suddenly because I couldn't breathe. On the walk back home to my apartment that day, I did not suspect that I was about to spend the next 4 months of my life in bed and have to take an entire semester of college off. So I was about to check out for 4 months because I overtrained to a point that damaged me. I was obsessed with physical training. I made myself sick. But so many of us do that in so many different ways. So from someone who crash diets, to someone who drinks heavily every week, to someone who develops anxiety and overloads their schedule with work, we all check out differently. And so many of us have this in our lives. I was incredibly sick for so long because I neglected to take care of my body, but I also was overlooking a lot of my other passions in life, and it backfired in a very big way. So after being admitted to the ER twice, I found myself lying on my back, staring up at my ceiling, feeling defeated. And by the second week, I was going crazy because I couldn't do anything. I was just lying in bed. I don't know how many of you have ever had the feeling of not being able to breathe, of your body suffocating itself, but it's scary. I was far away from home. I had no one to take care of me. And I had this deep fear and uncertainty about my well-being. Would I get better? Ever? And as I contemplated these things, a thought crept into my head. And I thought, while I couldn't use my body the way that I had in the past, I could still use my mind, and I could share with the world valuable information from a place of truth. So I conceived a company called Miss Strong. And I started writing articles for the world and for women about all that we are not told about being strong, fit, and healthy. 3 months later, still bedridden, but back at home this time, I could no longer tolerate lying still. I had to get up and move, but I was terrified to get up because I didn't know what would happen. I still felt like every single time I tried to breathe, I couldn't fully inhale. So to distract myself, I started reading books. Lots of them. And then I did this experiment where I lay down next to my bed and I held a yoga pose. Just one. And before long, I was able to stand up and I started going for walks around my block. And every day, I would walk just a little bit further. And I realized that because I could not use my body the way that I had in the past, I was relying on other dimensions of myself, my mind, my heart, my soul. And I was beginning to develop my actual self in many different ways. Now again, I'm talking about me and how I overtrained to the point of sickness, but how many people find themselves metaphorically bedridden from depression or anxiety because they're scared of what their life's going to look like? They're scared of who they're going to be, how much money they're going to make, performing well in school, what they're going to look like. There are so many different aspects that we can focus on, and sometimes we focus on the part and not the whole. So, for example, let's think about relationships, right? When you're in a relationship, you're seeking another half. People are semi-complete, and they want to make a whole. So, going back to Eastern philosophy and symbolism, picture yin and yang, half and half. It's peanut butter and jelly. It's the idea of creating another half to make a whole. So can you imagine how rich and successful a relationship would be if it was multifaceted, if you brought your body, your mind, and your soul? But to have such a relationship, you have to bring your half. So going back to my personal story, when my physical strength ultimately returned, I informed my parents that I was going to do a bodybuilding competition. I was incredibly committed to looking a certain way. I would Google fit girls, and I would think, I want her hair, I want her legs. And then I'd go and look in the mirror, and I would think, I want that. How do I get that? How can I look like that? So I trained with a couple of coaches for 6 months to change my body as quickly as possible naturally. And I started to feel run down. And I also started doing something that a lot of girls who are starving themselves from only eating rice cakes and lettuce leaves do. I started binging and gorging myself with every type of food in sight. Many of you can identify with the feeling of dieting or of committing to doing something for a little bit of time and then yo-yoing back and failing. I failed. I was a victim of exclusively focusing on my body, and I never met my goal. In fact, I was worse off than when I started. Now my body was hurt again, but psychologically, from binging on so much food, so was my mind. I felt lost. I felt incredibly inadequate. And in this modern age, a lot of people talk about feeling lost and inadequate. Some of my clients have told me that they feel like they are just one piece of who they are. This is isolating. It is not complete. It is not whole. It is not anything that can breed success. And I started to realize this when my binge eating cycle came to an end. I started thinking about how I'm more than just a body. And I started doing things that allowed me to move and maintain my passion for fitness, but also allowed me to express myself in more than just one way. So I started rock climbing a lot, inside and outside. And when I started climbing, I was literally pulling my own weight again. And I felt so happy. Not because rock climbing is a physical sport. For me, it wasn't about the body, but it's about the mind. Solving puzzles, being in nature. In Colorado, we have a couple months of summer, and you blink and autumn's over, and then we have 6 to 7 months of skiing season. I had stopped snowboarding because my bodybuilding coach told me that I had to. I had given something up that to me was an expression of my heart. So this past spring, while preparing for this new bodybuilding competition, I decided that I would step on stage in a bikini and I would do what it took to get there, but I would not abandon doing things that filled me up. So I ended up spending 4 out of 7 days a week on mountain peaks with my friends before classes. I went back to school in Colorado, and I decided that in addition to studying business and entrepreneurship, I wanted to study art. And so some nights I would pour my soul out onto canvases with brightly colored paints. For me, getting a great body was about doing things that I loved experiencing in the moment, rock climbing, snowboarding, painting, yoga, while also lifting weights at the same time. And maybe for someone else it's making pottery or playing an instrument, but these things that you can do, they help to increase your mental capacity. They help to add value to your life. They help to nourish your being. The first time around, I flat out failed at this bodybuilding competition. Not only was I unable to compete, but I was unable to perform, and my body was incredibly unhealthy for so long because, ironically, I was focusing on it too much. I was focused on an end result. I was focused on the good hair and the good legs. I was obsessing every single day over the fact that I needed to measure out the precise amount of almonds and white fish that I was eating. The second time around, I was focused on the journey, the experience, the challenge of doing something highly physical while maintaining health here and in here. I started to feed my soul and not my ego. I started doing things that made me feel alive, and when I finally stepped onto the bodybuilding stage, I felt like I showed up as a full, whole, complete person. So our generation is comfortable with multitasking and social media, but as young people, We need to define ourselves. What makes us feel whole? What makes us feel happy? What makes us feel alive? And not give in to the social stereotyping of our generation. So the point is, we're more than one-dimensional. We're more than just our body. We're more than just our mind. We are more than just our heart. And we are so swamped with information every single day, through ads, through the media, that we struggle to regain our balance. I've found balance in my life. I continue to check in with my heart. And I have given myself the freedom to express myself in more than just one way. So my hope for all of you, my hope is that you'll simply take a breath, look around, and really, really, truly think about the balance in your own life. Thank you.